Okay, so like Rabbi D mentioned, my name is Landa. I'm a mental health professional. I work in a bunch of the schools. I also have a private practice, and I deal with all sorts of cases. Just by way of introduction, I've had some pretty interesting experiences myself through internships that I've went through. For example, one summer I worked at MCIW. Anybody know what that stands for? Raise your hand. MCIW. Anybody want to take a guess? Maryland Correctional Institution for Women. So I worked in a maximum security prison for women, the hardest of the hardest women criminals. And I had the privilege of working one-on-one with a woman. I forgot what her real name was, but on her off days, she went by Coco. And it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough with sheriffs and shotguns walking around. Especially I look a little Jewish, so they were a little bit more nervous, a little bit. And so it was an interesting experience. And I've dealt with some. I went with my suit and tie, yeah. And it was a pretty interesting experience. A lot of extreme cases that one might not find so generally in working in mental health. But it gave me a lot of experience. So what I want to discuss with you guys tonight a little bit is, how many people here know someone that has dealt with or struggled with mental health issues, conditions? Most people. And really we understand that it's something that's just as prevalent as going to your general doctor. We don't have to point out anybody. We don't have to point out any specific cases here. But just as much as going to your regular general practitioner, the doctor, going to a mental health practitioner, getting mental health help is something that we recognize more and more nowadays is extremely important for our society at large and to be a healthy individual and a human being. A lot of being a mental health professional requires good listening skills, being able to really listen to another person, being able to empathize. Anybody know the difference between empathy and sympathy? Yeah.
Empathy is like you really understand, like you put yourself in their shoes, and sympathy is like more, not like pity, but like you feel more sorry for them.
Very well said. What's your name?
Gabby.
Gabby, very well said. Empathy, you're putting yourself in that person's shoes. There's a famous little clip by Brene Brown who talks about how sympathy often starts with "at least." You know, I'm really feeling bad right now because I'm having trouble in my marriage. At least you are married. That's more like sympathy. Empathy is, I'm going to come down into that dark place with you. I'm going to put myself into your shoes. And the only way you can do that, especially even as a friend, by the way, and a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight applies to you as friends with each other, but certainly as a therapist, is if you can put yourself in that person's shoes in a non-judgmental way. If you're going to look at that person and judge them for what they are or what they're doing or what they believe in, how could you ever help them? They're not going to be able to connect to you. They're not going to be able to trust you. As an extreme example, imagine if you were a therapist and somebody sent to you the following client. This person has been convicted for child molestation. Can you treat that person? You probably wouldn't have a hard time treating and helping the child victim, but would you be able to treat the perpetrator? That's not easy. Can you put your judgments aside? It takes a lot of training and practice to be able to do that. And some people that are professionals will refer some of those cases out. They won't treat some cases. So just some interesting things to think about when it comes to being a mental health professional. And being an Orthodox Jewish mental health professional, we have the ultimate moral guide, the Torah, the Jewish moral guide. And that has to be brought into the equation as well in terms of what are our ethics. When do we breach confidentiality and when don't we? So here are some interesting cases for that. What if you guys had a friend who told you that they're wondering sometimes whether anyone would miss them if they were gone? A friend of yours goes to you in private and says, you know, I wonder if anyone would miss me if I was just gone, if I never came back. That's what they said. What would you do? Would you tell anyone? What do you think? What would you guys do? You would?
I think I'd tell them because if it's for their own safety and if you were actually genuinely concerned about like the harm themselves.
So then you would want to protect them, yeah. Same idea. If you really are concerned for their safety, you would tell. Does anybody, yeah?
I would just have them in that, like when they show me saying that, they're obviously trying to like reach out. Right? So I've kind of tried to both of them and tell them to talk to them or expand on that.
Talk to what?
Talk to them, have them expand on that.
So you'd want to encourage more conversation, provide them a listening ear in a non-judgmental way, and you'd want to be able to give them an opportunity to speak out their feelings a little bit more. But you definitely want to look out for their safety. So even though you have this value of, your friend might even, I'm assuming, what's your name?
Alina.
Alina, I'm assuming even if your friend told you, don't tell anyone what I just said, you would still consider telling, right? Which means you have this value of keeping your friend's confidence, and it's in conflict with the value of protecting and helping your friend stay safe. And you have to make this judgment call that, well, the safety of my friend outweighs the value of keeping their confidence, of keeping their secret. So there are a lot of tricky cases that can come up in this regard, and especially if you're a therapist where the law is involved, right? Just like attorneys have attorney-client privilege, a therapist has laws of confidentiality with their client, and it can be difficult sometimes. For example, in this case, for a therapist, I'm not talking about with you guys as friends. I think you guys are saying the right answer when it comes to friends. But if you were a therapist, it makes a huge difference whether that person who's expressing some suicidal ideation, we would call it, they're kind of contemplating suicide, unfortunately. It would make a huge difference whether or not they start talking about when and how they would do it. If they're not talking about when and how they would do it, then we do not necessarily by law have to reveal. We can continue working with them without revealing to authorities or to other agencies. But if they start to talk about when and how, then it becomes a lot more real and a lot more dangerous. So that's an interesting topic, right? Here's another one. What if you're on Instagram and you notice a video of your friend cutting themselves? Nobody else noticed it. Do you tell anyone? You report it? Who would you call? You would report it to Instagram to get them to delete it, and then you go on with your dinner. It's a friend of yours. So what would you do besides for getting it off Instagram? What would you write? So what's wrong? Talk to me. So you'd open up conversation. You'd say, hey, what could I do for you? Right? What's going on? Is everything okay? And that's what you want to do. You want to always try to be a good friend and be there for the person because you notice they're in pain and no one else seems to have realized and you stumbled upon it. But would you, what's your name? What's your name, by the way? Simon? Would you, besides for reaching out to him, would you tell anyone else about what you saw? So far, no one seems to have seen it. You like stumbled upon it, like another account that he has or something like that. Would you tell anyone? Right, that's right. It's a hard one, right? And it would depend. How dangerous does it look? How much in trouble are they in? But you would consider telling, right? Simon would consider telling. What if you have a friend? What if you have a friend who tells you, dude, I'm going to a party tonight, and they're going to be bringing a certain drug. We don't have to get into the specifics. And I'm going to try that drug. I'm going to try that drug for the first time. And it's not alcohol, nicotine, or marijuana, THC. Something beyond those three. So he says, yo, for the first time, I'm going to try that drug tonight at the party. I have a friend. He's hooked up. He's bringing it tonight. Do you tell anyone? You just you tell your friend, I don't know, it might be dangerous. I don't think you should do it. He's like, I'm definitely doing it. You can join me if you want, but I'm definitely doing it. Do you tell anyone? What's your name? Dylan? Guys, let me just hear Dylan over here. 1 second, guys.
I mean, if he wants to try it,
Okay. You know what happens when you have 4 people clapping in a room of 60? It sounds like a lot of clapping. But what you're saying there's a value to
I
that.
mean, like, I'll say something like, no, you probably shouldn't, but if he's like, if his response goes, no, I'm gonna try this, like you said.
So you'd say, all right, I'm gonna mind my own business, right? I'm not gonna tell anyone, I'm gonna mind my own business, right? Yeah. He wants to try something, I'm not gonna get involved, right? And there's what to say about that. Let's see what other people have to say, yeah.
If he's a close enough friend, you would go with them, just like make sure there's no
So
conflict.
kind of just watch them. Try to take care of them. Yeah, what do you want to say? Same idea. You be there for them. You go follow them around, make sure they don't do too much of it or whatever, right? And if something happens, you're there. You can get them help if they need help. Okay? So,
Then again, it's guilty by association. That's probably what it
so you're worried about the law?
It's a good Samaritan law.
People should be worried about the law. I'm not saying you shouldn't.
It's a good Samaritan law.
Good Samaritan law. You don't get in trouble if you call because something happened.
That's true. No, he's saying, what if you don't say anything?
You say something because there's no repercussions because of Good Samaritan law.
Okay.
Maybe like repercussions with nothing.
No, that's a good point.
Nothing that's worth the health of a friend.
What's your name?
Yeah.
So Jacqueline's saying, of course, it's not worth the health of a friend, right? We have a little bit of an argument from two corners here between Dylan and Jacqueline. Not that I'm pitting you guys against each other, but hey, come on, if the safety of one of your friends is at stake.
I didn't know it was my friend.
So if it's not your friend,
Rando comes up.
Yeah, if it's not my friend, I don't care.
what do you want to say?
I think that maybe on some level, if your friend is telling you that they're gonna try some kind of drug at a party, maybe on some level that they want you to intervene.
That's a
That
good
they're
point.
not like if they didn't want you to help out, they would just go
That's a smart
silently
point.
unless they're inviting you.
Sometimes the friend is kind of reaching out for help in an around the back way by just letting you know.
And that way, I mean, if you're maybe close with their parents, be like just around them for a night. You know, it doesn't have to be coming from you. You could tell someone else indirectly.
Yeah, you have to be careful with that, but that can work out sometimes, yeah.
If you're worried about the legal repercussions, there are like
The which repercussions?
legal
Yeah.
there are like doctor-patient confidentiality agreements. So if they like end up doing it and they get hurt for some reason or like sick, and then you have to call the police, then you would.
Yeah, and that's still similar to the Good Samaritan laws that they were talking about before. But that's all arguing for telling someone
Yeah.
to hopefully get that person to not experiment with the drug. And the truth is that we know that some of the more hard drugs generally don't kill someone when they first try it. So even though we might not want our friend to go down that dangerous, dark path of substance abuse addiction, because one hit of cocaine has a high probability of causing real addiction. And at the same time, there are certain drugs, as we know, those that come tainted from China, etc., that can kill the first time you try it. And so we want to be super careful when we're making these types of decisions. We don't want to live on our conscience, to have that one of our friends, God forbid, died because we didn't tell someone. So it's a really heavy decision. And by the way, as it is true with a lot of these things, because like I said before, the Jewish moral code of Torah would also have a lot to say about every single one of these cases. You're fortunate to have leaders and mentors, like, what's your name again? Morty, Rabbi D, Rabbi Lerner, to have these people that you can ask advice from and that you can get help from, to speak to your parents who have life experience and get advice. That's priceless because these decisions are heavy and complex most of the time. Yeah.
I think one of the things that we've been kind of chasing around is this, by like getting your friend that help if they were to try hard stuff. There's something not going right. You don't just try hard drugs. Like that's 90%.
Like what's pushing them to that?
Right. We're also like based on that idea of like being a snake. It's like as soon as
you want to avoid that.
Right. Well, we're like not to say that we're not to say that we're self-centered and attack us, but we also like. There's also like a heavy social burden too, especially
like I can't hang out with you anymore. Maybe you're gonna tell my mom that whatever. Yeah, that's a very true point. Okay, let me give you guys another one. What if a friend tells you that they're completely fed up with their parents? Tonight, they're running away to an older friend's apartment, and they're going to be sleeping by that older friend's apartment tonight. And doesn't make a difference or not if that older friend is the same gender or the opposite gender of them. Yeah.
You tell them that, no, you're coming to sleep at my house, my safe house, or I'm telling your parents.
You got good answers. I like that. What's your name?
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you say, Dylan?
Yeah, I'm gonna stop him.
You'll stop them.
Yeah, I'm stopping in this case because like he's got like unsafety. I don't.
If you don't know who they're going to, that's like pretty scary. Is that what you're saying? What's your name in the corner? Yeah, you. So what's your name? Nathan, do you agree with Dylan?
You would just let him roam around? You're a terrible friend.
Yeah.
That's the thing, he's not roaming around, but he's going to an older person, so you can't trust that person, so I kind of agree with that. Okay, good.
So you guys are pretty much in agreement about that one. As a therapist, it wouldn't be so simple. The fact that if it's a minor, somebody under 18, then really I'm allowed to tell their parents anything. By the way, whenever I work with teenagers under 18, which I work with a lot in that age group, I always tell the parents, it's true legally you have a right to ask me about every single thing I discussed with your child in session. But if you do that without me deciding what to tell you, usually working that out together with the teenager, with my client, I quit. Because there's no way I can build a good relationship with someone if it's not built on a foundation of trust. And if they see me as just a mouthpiece to their parents, then you have every right to demand the information, and I have every right to say, I'm put at too much of a disadvantage to be able to service you, and I have to quit in that case. I've never had a case where the parents got into that situation with me and I had to quit. It always worked out because generally parents care about their children, that, okay, we trust you, that you're not going to tell us everything that's going on. Yeah?
What if the child is like disclosing to you that they've been abused and like
Well, that was another case that I was going to get to. That's a great one. Let me put it out to you guys as a friend first. What if a friend of yours discloses to you that their parent or their significant other, someone else in their life, another relative, is abusing them, either physically or sexually? Do you tell anyone? They say to you, I want to tell you a secret. I'm begging you. Okay, this is your best friend. I'm begging you. Don't tell anyone. It will make things worse for me if so-and-so finds out that I told anyone, because most victims of abuse feel that way. They feel like if anyone finds out, and it was a huge step for them to tell you, the best friend. Do you tell anyone?
No.
Or do you keep their secret?
I would probably like invite them over to my house or something for like, I don't know, just to stay at my house for a couple of days or whatever. And then I would talk to them and see if like they could just tell my parents and talk to them about it and see like what they want to do.
Great idea. So you buy a little bit of time by kind of trying to remove them from the abusive situation. Yeah.
I feel like almost every story I've heard that like has like abuse in it, that every person felt the same way, but once they told someone, they felt like a sense of relief.
Changed
And
once they
usually,
revealed.
like when you tell authorities or something like that, then they take the person away, and like there's still obviously like trauma and stuff, but it stops. So I would talk to them. I would also tell them to come over and like, okay, let's go to like the police together and like kind of just help them.
So you would help that without you needing to reveal it. You'd help them realize this has to be told to the right people, and you'd be there for them through the process. That's a really good friend. Yeah.
So I basically agree with both of what they just said. I would do my best to like help them remove themselves from the issue that I know is not good for them, and I would do my best. And I like, depending on what I need, I know my first line of like if something happens to some of my friends, if someone's in trouble, I know that I can go to my parents and they'll do their best to help whoever it is.
Right.
But I would try to buy time and work it out with them and have them, like, if it's a parent, have them come stay with me and really do the best to keep them out
That's
of that
fantastic.
situation.
That's really being a good friend, but it's really hard. That's really tough. Really a lot of things that you're balancing there. As a therapist, there's actually not so much room to maneuver here. You guys would try to buy time, you guys would, and as a friend that makes a lot of sense, especially if you're removing them from the situation. But as a therapist, I actually don't have that luxury. If a client reveals to me that there's abuse going on, that immediately has to be reported to depending on what we're dealing with, Child Protective Services or the authorities, so that it can be further investigated to be able to see if it's going on, because as a society we care the most about the safety of people and certainly children in our society.
So when a child is telling you something, you do not have to tell their parents.
I don't have to tell the parents everything the child tells me, but I have to tell the parents if the parents say, I demand you tell me what my child said. Which never happened to me, because I'll preempt that with, keep in mind, I'm going to be sharing with you some aspects of the sessions, but not everything, because I need to have a foundation of trust with the child. And if there is something big I need to share with the parents, my way of doing it, I tell the kid, listen, this is something I really feel like we need to bring to your parents. Well, let's do it your way. Do you want me to tell your mom or your dad? Is there certain parts of the details that you'd rather me leave out for now? Maybe disclose those details and just give over the general. But this part, I think we really need to. And usually, again, the kid understands. He's happy that I'm not just like behind his back or behind her back. Exactly. So those are great questions, and that's really being a great friend. We got still have time? Yeah. Okay. Let's do it. Let's do a couple more. What if, here's an interesting case, what if you're walking through the mall and outside of a store you see a mom with a little child, small little child, and the mom hits the child, disciplining the child, really hard on the head. What do you do? Who didn't say something yet? What do you guys say? Nobody over here have any opinions? You saw the mom hit the child really hard on the head, disciplining them. What would you do? Would you do anything? Would you walk away? Would you quickly go into the store that you were going to go to? And most people would do that. One second. Most people would do that. Yeah.
I'd probably take notice of it and stay in around it, see what's going on, and
See if it gets worse.
Yeah,
Continue.
But you gotta keep in mind, people, parents discipline their kids all the time. I get it can be harsh. But
Here's one part piece of the question. Does it make a difference if the slap was open-handed or closed-handed? What? Correct. In fact, when we talk about corporal punishment, which is physical punishment from a parent to a child, which is legal in the United States of America, it is allowed for a parent to physically punish their child, but only if it doesn't cross the line to abuse. One of the ways, it's not ironclad, and there are lots of gray areas here, it's a very confusing subject, it's law and in therapy, and psychology, but one of the ways that they try to determine, is this something which is allowed or not allowed, was it an open-handed slap or a closed-handed punch with your fist? Yeah, the closed-handed punch is going to be much more abuse-like than the open-handed slap. Not that necessarily nowadays is it so great for parents to be hitting their children as a form of discipline, but that's a way that they might distinguish between what's allowed and what's not.
I say that the line between whether you use the or no is first of all to realize if it seems, or if the child is acting as if something is genuinely wrong, that's discipline. But also, I don't think anyone should personally interject just because the mother's often have a very adverse reaction. So if there was a cough or whatever,
Okay, you could go tell an officer to check it out. Here's something really interesting. Let me point this out. How many people in this room, raise your hands, are currently a teacher? Oh, wow, I thought it was only going to be the rabbis. So you guys are tutors? Okay. I'm not sure if tutors count. But in Maryland and many other states, but not every state, there's something called mandated reporters. That means if you see an abusive situation, clearly abusive situation, at the mall, you are mandated to report. Because you're.
Wait, I'm walking in the mall.
Yes.
Because I'm a teacher, I gotta deal with those two strangers.
You have to report it. You don't have to go and intervene.
That's the law.
There are certain types of people that are considered mandated reporters, and teacher is one of them. Okay. Yeah, what would you say? Guys, I can't hear him. Hold on. Yeah. I think so. I think summer camp counselors would be too. Yeah. But what's your name? What's your name in the right selection? Noah. I wonder, I haven't looked into this, if it would make a difference if it's in the summer or if it's the school year. It's just the summer? It could be. Could be. Yeah.
One of the things that I'm worried about is, obviously, I'm going like, oh, what's something that gets home? The parents make the kid like very nauseous on. That's not something that, happens. But I'm also worried about bystanders. So like, you're gonna have people that see this, like you're not gonna want to do it. So like, you're like kind of poised with this situation. Are you gonna do something?
Right. Right. And the bystander effect is a huge phenomenon. I don't know if you guys learned about it in school, but there were some crazy cases where people just stood by and people even got murdered.
Yes.
Because everyone else was standing by and not doing something. It actually applies to bullying. How many people in this room have ever witnessed or been around a bullying situation over the course of your school years? I would imagine most of you, right? To just stand by and do nothing actually not only increases the feel of the bullying to the victim, but it also encourages the bullying and makes it worse. And it makes more people not do something, and it can become really bad really fast. Anyway, it's some interesting stuff. Let's do one last example here. This one you may think on the surface applies more to girls, but it's applying more and more to boys. What if you're in the bathroom and in the stall next to you, you notice or you hear a girl or a boy, more often now, throwing up. And it's pretty clear that it's happening right after the meal took place. So we know there's a diagnosable condition called bulimia, which is where the person has that need to throw up after eating. So is that something that you would say to anyone? You know who the girl is. When you come out and she comes out, you see who it is. Or he comes out, you see who it is. Do you say anything? And here's part B to the question. Try to answer this one with the first question. What if the next day you're at lunch and you're sitting next to this same person, and they eat, and at that same moment they decide, excuse me, I'm just going to the bathroom right now. Do you follow and go to the bathroom even though you don't have to go, just to investigate and see what's going on?
No.
Or do you mind your own business?
Go to the counselor.
Let me hear from someone who hasn't answered it. What would you do right there? No, you. Yeah, what's your name? Nathan, what would you do? You're Nathan also, right? Yeah. You would follow into the bathroom? You would not. Mind your own business. Yeah, what would you say?
I think that we kind of have to remember that we're not like trained professionals. Like I'm not any kind of medical professional. I'm also not like a vigilante. So at that point I would get like a trusted teacher advisor or like a school nurse of that same gender.
So share your concerns.
Who would go into the bathroom and talk to that person. Because I don't know that if I'm going to talk to my friend, I'm not going to be able to talk them out of like a body dysmorphia disorder.
Right.
I'm not going to be able to talk them out of an eating disorder. But if I can get help.
But you would not mind your own business.
No, I wouldn't.
What would you do? Right here. Any ideas? Same as her. What about you? What would you do?
But I would definitely talk to the teacher.
Just kind of make someone aware.
Like she said, like I'm not trained to like do anything.
But you'd want to try to make someone aware. You wouldn't just totally mind your own business. Okay? And that's all coming from the value that you all have, which is beautiful, of caring about other people. You're not just selfish people, but you care about other people. You look out for your friends, you look out for your community, and that's really important. Being a mental health professional is all about that. It's developing genuine care for other people that are sitting in front of you in non-judgmental ways. And like I said before, balancing that with the Torah values that we have, which is such a beautiful, clear light that shines on, a lot of these difficult cases will have a clear answer from the Torah's perspective, because that's an objective morality that comes from God. Whereas, when you look at it from the secular perspective, we have all sorts of very valid human perspectives. And it can be very confusing to try to put those together and figure out, well, what exactly is the right path? But all of you, from what I've heard tonight, are on that same page of, you can't just walk away and mind your own business when there's some threat to a friend's safety. You got to do something. You got to tell someone. You got to try to remove them from the situation. And it speaks to the amazing group that you guys are. And it's really a privilege for me to be able to present to you guys and hear the different ways that you think. And it's amazing that you guys, like I said before, have such leaders and mentors here in NCSY that you can get advice and guidance from, as well as obviously from your parents first and foremost, who are going to be there, easily accessible with life experience. Don't count out your parents. And it was really my pleasure to be able to present to you. Thank you guys so much.